Etheria Restart is here, and a lot of you guys may be asking yourselves, what is the best character for me to actually try to pull when I start the game using its targeted summon starter bonus? The targeted summon being a guaranteed SSR Animus of your choice within 40 summons. This is going to be a one-time thing that you can do when you choose to start to play Etheria Restart. There's a lot of good characters in this targeted summon bonus list, and we're going to be going over which one you should definitely be picking. I know it's not just going to be Tiamat, although she's going to be one of the options. And keep in mind, this isn't going to be a reroll guide. That'll be a thing that's coming out in the future. And it's also not going to be a reroll tier list. This is specifically for the targeted summon function. Now, if you go in here and you check out which characters you have access to choose from in this targeted summon list, there's going to be a couple of hitters, a couple missers, and a couple of stinkers to mix in with what you want to choose. But there is going to be one type of character you're going to want to avoid in your targeted summon, and in my opinion, this is going to be any DPS character. The DPS archetype is kind of flooded, and this is going to be for one main reason, and that's because when you start to play Etheria Restart, you cannot farm up enough materials to fully level out a bunch of SSR units right away. You're going to want to, in fact, focus on some SR characters. And why wouldn't you want your SSR to be your DPS? That's because you get a fantastic SSR DPS for free when you start to play Etheria Restart in the form of Leon. Leon's got a fantastic AoE S3 skill, and since you already get a fantastic SSR DPS character, I wouldn't want you to go ahead and use your guaranteed pity on the same archetype of unit. So with that information, there's going to be a couple of characters you're going to want to skip over here. We have characters like Born and Rosa, who I think is a fantastic top tier character as a DPS, is someone that I still would tell you not to pull for. So let's just get it out of the way. One of the highest recommendations that I can give you, as well as everyone else probably has given you already, is going to be Tiamat. Tiamat is going to be that can do everything character for you. She's a sustained character, but also offers up some damage for you as well in the entirety of her kit. Her S2 is going to be the bread and butter of what she's really giving to you, allowing you to put a shield and a heal over time on allies, making her not just tanky herself, but also helping keep your teammates alive as like a tertiary sort of thing that she does for your party. But she also does do a couple other things on top of that. She's got this unique mechanic called the Bloodshed mechanic, which is a stacking mechanic that Tiamat herself gets, which increases the amount of healing that she receives for every stack that she does have, and this stacks up to 20 times, making her a very easy sustain tank for you as well. So she's keeping herself healthy, she's keeping your party healthy, and she's very easy to keep up on top of that. She also does have a very powerful S1, which is an HP scaling damage attack, so she can be a little bit of a bruiser for you too. And she also has this Mother of Evolution ability where she shares 25% of the damage taken by other allies. You couple this with her shield S2, where she gives everyone a barrier, and then she can also not just reduce the damage that your characters are taking with the barrier, but she makes that barrier last longer because she's absorbing 25% of the damage that your teammates are taking to herself as well. But it gets even better than that because, well, she can enter an ultimate form, which we'll talk about in a minute, because we want to talk about her S3 as well, which is going to inflict a one-turn taunt and also do a pretty substantial amount of damage. It does consume some of her own life, but don't worry, we also have the Bloodshed mechanic helping us heal her back over time to do a massive amount of 2-hit damage, scaling off of 10% of her max HP, and it has a 50% chance to inflict a one-turn taunt. So she's going to be a very tanky character that helps sustain your team on top of that, and she also can do a pretty significant amount of damage once you trigger her ultimate form, which will give you the nice Purge Day ability. Now, Purge Day is going to do pretty insane damage for a tank, I would say. 15% of her max HP, and then adding additional true damage equal to 13% of her current health, and recovering HP equal to 20% of the damage done. Obviously, this skill does not have a cooldown because it's part of being in ultimate form. So this is a huge lifesteal sort of effect here. She does everything that you would want a character to do, allows your supports to support your debuffers, to debuff your damage dealers, to do damage, and she's just going to be useful in every facet of your gameplay, whether it's PvE or PvP. in this game. And even with the nerf that we're going to be receiving on launch to Tiamat, which is going to reduce her self-healing when she does enter ultimate form, as well as the additional healing she receives from her bloodbath stacks being reduced, she's still going to be an absolute monster for your account in Etheria Restart. But some other characters you might want to think about if you're not interested in Tiamat, or maybe you have Tiamat from pulling on the permanent summon banner, or you were chasing some other characters on the time limited banners, you don't really need to get Tiamat on your account. Someone like Helkid is a nice secondary addition to on your account as well. Now, Helkid, listen, you're gonna have to think, all right, he gets a bad rap. I think he's gonna be pretty strong in a lot of circumstances, especially possibly in PvP as well. Now, all three of Helkid's skills revolve around this Shroud Barrier mechanic, which mainly comes from his S3, which is a 4-turn cooldown. It's going to summon a Shroud Barrier that scales off of his attack and applies it to all of your allies, which is going to be a huge big barrier for everybody, absorbs an amount equal to damage and grants immunity against all debuffs for its duration, which is the big thing. Not only is it a barrier that absorbs damage, but it gives you immunity against all debuffs while it is on. So if you couple the Shroud Barrier with someone like Tiamat in your party, that's going to be absorbing damage to them, making barriers last longer, this is going to be a very good thing. But on top of that, the second ability that Helkid has is going to be Crystal Strike, which does do an AoE attack down, which allows you to keep your barriers up even longer so you can't be debuffed, your characters are healthy. Debuffing the attack of your enemies just keeps all of these things going very well for you. But on top of that, if Helkid has Shroud Barrier, 50% of the damage done will be added to Shroud Barrier up to 150% of Helkid's attack, allowing you to keep that barrier up even longer, which is very important because the final skill is a very powerful S1 effect, which does some damage, but also on top of that has a 50% chance to stun for 1 turn. But if Shroud Barrier is still on Helkid, it goes up to a 100% chance to stun. So this is like a very tanky, supportive, crowd controlling character to add to like a turn 2 team. If you're, Summoners War Epic 7, a very strong turn 2 character in a lot of circumstances here, just making your team extremely tanky, immune to all debuffs, and then putting debuffs on your opponents as well. Between the stun and the attack down, you're gonna be mitigating a lot of damage with Helkid in your party. Now moving into a more offensive support character, we have Beyotin. Well, maybe a little bit of offense and defense, you'll see here. Now Beyotin really revolves around a couple of things. Now her S3 Karma Abyss is a large buff, giving an attack buff and a crit damage buff to your entire party for 2 turns. And then on top of that, she's gonna grant herself this unique buff of Underworld Flower to herself as well. Once you have this skill fully leveled up, you're gonna get 2 stacks of this Underworld Flower buff. And if you can see the buff right here, each stack of Underworld Flower decreases the damage that Beyotin takes by 5%, making it a lot harder for her to be taken off of the battlefield. And if an ally is down, dead, after she takes an action, you will consume a stack of Underworld Flower to revive them to 40% of their max HP and giving them 35% turn meter increase. You can get 5 of these Underworld Flower stacks, meaning that if you use her in conjunction with other characters that can reduce turn cooldowns, right, on abilities, you can gain 4 stacks of Underworld Flower. And as long as your opponents can't dispel them, like it said here, it can be dispelled, it can't be stolen, but it can still be dispelled, which is her main weakness. It's going to be very hard for anyone to get through your team because remember, they have to take her out first, but she gets all this damage reduction for having these Underworld Flower stacks, and anyone else that they kill, well, she can just bring back when she takes her turn passively. But on top of passively bringing them back, her S2 here, Soul Whirl, can help you, well, do a couple of other crazy things. Now, the S2 here is an extra turn skill. Beyotin makes 1 allied Animus immediately start their turn and reduces their Animus skill cooldown by 2 turns, which is very powerful. Can be used on fallen allies as well. So not only does this have like a 100% CR push, whether you're talking about, auxiliary lots or Brania from Honkai Star Rail, it also reduces their cooldowns by 2 turns. But if someone's dead in your party, you can use this skill if you have an Underworld Flower stack to immediately revive them at 50% max HP, which is kind of crazy. And I think they also get a full CR push as well. Now you can also use this skill on a fallen ally without underworld flower stacks, and you'll let them take an action and then they'll actually go back to being dead. But this is kind of insane that you have the ability to buff up attack, crit damage, reduce skill cooldowns, have a full combat met readiness push here, and also reduce skill cooldowns by 1 turn here as well, and allowing your teammates to just act more, do more damage, and be very hard to take off of the battlefield. So if you're playing some sort of like tank down, protect my 1 DPS PvP team, or protect my 1 DPS PvE team, she's going to allow you to buff their damage up even more and make it so you cannot really get rid of that character all too quickly in a lot of team compositions. Her S1 also, we haven't talked about this, is pretty cool, does some damage, and then it's going to give you a 25% turn meter increase for your ally with the lowest combat readiness currently. So she's a very powerful character as an offensive but also defensive support option. So if you're looking for someone like this in your party to use, she's going to be pretty good in that role. Another very strong option as a supporter is going to be Tsukiyo Mi, and Tsukiyo Mi is going to be a little bit of a combination of the 2 characters we just talked about. So her S3 is going to be a buff, giving it an attack buff, as well as a speed buff to all allies for 2 turns, but also increasing the combat readiness, the turn meter of a targeted ally by 100%, and 35% for herself. It's gonna be on a 4-turn cooldown once you have it fully maxed out. So this is gonna be the I gotta go fast character, giving speed buff to your entire team, attack buff to your entire team, and then letting someone go immediately after her. She's gonna be a fantastic character. The ultimate sort of like Oxlot speed buffer, right? A little bit of a combination of the character we just talked about. But her S2 here is the Beast Swarm, and she's gonna do a damage scaling off of her own defense, which is pretty interesting, and it has a low 45% chance to inflict a 1-turn silence, but this attack also is gonna reduce all skill cooldowns for all allies by 1 turn as well. So very similar to the character we just talked about. However, there isn't a way for you to revive anyone with this character here with Tsukiyo Mi, but she is a more offensive version. She's given attack and speed buff and immediately combat readiness, pushing somebody in the same skill at the start of the battle with her S3. Her S1 is just kind of a bread and butter, right? She's gonna do 320% of her defense scaling damage to an ally, and she's gonna increase the combat readiness of the ally in your party with the highest attack instead of the lowest combat readiness. So she doesn't have that sort of self-revive, sort of semi-decently help my team stay alive and just sort of be this perpetual pain in the butt like we just talked about with the previous character, but she also does do a couple of other things better, which is just gotta go fast, right? Having the ability to push somebody in, speed up the rest of your team, and give attack buff all in one skill. There's a lot packed into just one skill here, and you can, in PvP, for example, pop this skill, damage dealer goes to the moon, and just wipe somebody off of the map, and you have her ready to rock and roll because she's got speed buff now, and she also CR pushed herself 35%, ready to come back and follow up, maybe possibly silencing somebody. But the main thing on her S2 is the 1-turn skill cooldown reduction for everyone in your party, which is going to be pretty nice when you play with her because she's going to CR push herself up, so she'll be able to immediately sort of follow up the rest of your team with this skill here. Now moving into another character archetype, listen, debuffers, pretty good. My favorite one, if you were to pick a targeted summon character in the debuffer support role, it's gonna be Lillith. Now Lillith is a sort of just goodbye, kiss it goodbye top tier character. S3 is tea time. You're going to do damage based off of her max HP. And then there's also gonna be a 100% chance to inflict graceful mischief on all targets that detonates automatically after 2 turns, and she's immediately going to take an extra turn after she uses this skill. So Graceful Mischief is basically like a bomb from Summoner's War or Epic 7. When it's removed, it explodes, dealing indirect damage equal to 30% of Lilith's max HP, with a 100% chance to stun that target for 1 turn. So your S3 is going to put a bunch of bombs on everybody in 2 turns, or if they get removed in some other way, they're going to immediately detonate, stun those characters, and then it's also going to do 30% of Lilith's max HP as damage. The S2, which is very important because remember her S3 gives her an extra turn, allows her to do 20% of her max HP to all enemies, and there's also a 100% chance to inflict speed down on all targets and detonates graceful mischief on the main target. So you're gonna be able to do a main target and it's going to detonate that bomb immediately, which is going to result in them being stunned. And it's also gonna put speed down on everyone else. And that main target that gets stunned is also gonna have their CR bar pushed all the way back to the beginning. So if you have a lot of effectiveness on this character, you land your bombs, the cleanser that they might have in like a PvP scenario, you detonate them, you give them speed down, you send them 100% CR bar all the way back to the beginning, and there's gonna be bombs left over on a couple of the other enemies in the PvP scenario, and they're gonna get to take one turn and then they're gonna blow up and be stunned as well. So a very high tempo oriented character, able to do S3 into her S2 immediately, gonna be very good in PvP circumstances in high tempo teams. On top of that though, you also just have a sort of basic S1, which is gonna be 20% of her max HP damage scaling. The main thing here is that every time you do use this skill, there's a 20% chance that she's gonna take an extra turn. We wanna mention that because, well, it does help her scale with turn cycling a little bit better. It's gonna be a little bit of an RNG luck sack, but you're typically gonna S3 into S2, and then if you're gonna be S1ing a bunch, you proc an extra turn one time. That's just gonna give you one extra turn and one turn cooldown off of getting back to your S3 and S2 again. So she's just gonna be a very high tempo character, and she can just sort of create that scenario, that window of opportunity for you to win a lot of your PvP matches. And on top of that, stunning things and putting speed down and reducing the combat readiness of big boss monsters, etc. in PvE scenarios makes her pretty good in those circumstances as well. She's a very unique character, and not a lot of other debuffers can really do exactly what she does. Now, the final one we want to talk about real quick is actually going to be Ling Lu. Now, Ling Lu's a fantastic character. She's an amazing support sustain character. We're not even going to go over her kit though, and the reason why you do not want to pick her on your select or wish banner is that if the game on launch stays the same way that it was in beta, there's going to be a 7-day login bonus. And you're going to get this character for free. So you do not need to pick this character. You're going to be getting her for free, and she's going to be a fantastic sustain character, being able to heal your party up, give them bonus HP, give them Whale Prayer to heal max HP over time. She's going to be a fantastic unit to have in your collection. And thankfully, you don't have to pick her because you're just going to get her for free. Two other characters that just barely missed the list, but I am going to shout out. We're going to start with Real Mocha here. And these two characters both have very high presence, at least in some of the farming for the endgame modes for gear grinding in Etheria Restart. Ramoka's gonna be very good for Doki Doki if you want to pick her in addition to someone like Tiamat. Should be a little bit better than Tiamat in that situation. She is also usable in PvP as well, but she isn't quite as flexible as someone like Tiamat is. So she just barely missed the list for that reason. Now, someone I arguably could put on the list is going to be Rosa, and Rosa's going to be a fantastic PvP as well as PvE DPS character. She's going to be also one of the best characters you can use to farm not the Doki Doki endgame grindy, but the second best one in the form of Aurora. She's going to be an amazing DPS for that farming simulator as well. So if you're not looking for speed sets, but some of the other very important sets you can gain from the Aurora, then Rosa might be someone you would want to pick from your selector summon as well. So what targeted summon character are you going after? Are you going to be just sticking with Tiamat, or maybe I talked you into pulling for some Helkid PvP action? I want to know down below. If you want to see more Etheria Restart content on this channel, look forward to it, and also like make the other gods like the channel more. Hit the like button or something. I don't know. I'm not your dad. I don't think.